Hey guys, tonight we're creeping through a palace that time forgot, where every shadow hides 3 secrets and your heart beats the loudest sound. Picture this. You're a butler in a threadbare coat, brass keyring digging into your hip, those candles you're lighting. Pure beeswax, the same stuff nobles burned to show off their wealth. Though let's be real, you definitely couldn't afford these in your real life. Their flames lick at wallpaper, once red as pomegranates, now faded to the color of dried blood. Fun fact: some royals insisted owl feathers mixed into the wax kept spirits away. Can't confirm if it worked, but hey, tonight's your chance to test that theory. Your boots whisper against stones worn smooth by centuries of slippered feet. That draft on your neck could be a ghost, or just the east window's broken latch. Breathe in, it's all smoke and citrus polish. Breathe out, the hallway stretches ahead like a throat. The candles sputter as you pass armor that's held the same pose since Cromwell's time. Historians still argue whether medieval servants ever slept, but your aching knees suggest they didn't. A moth dive bombs the nearest flame, and for a wild second, you consider letting it burn. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Seriously, algorithms are pickier than queens at a linen inspection. Drop your location and local time below. Let's see which night owls are tuning in from Tokyo towers or Arizona deserts. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your shadow grows fangs as you round the portrait gallery corner. Empty frames stare back. Someone removed the paintings, but left their gilt-edged gilt. Your candle gutters near a tapestry of Dionysus mid-bender, grapevines coiled around his legs like jealous lovers. Listen close. That's not just wind in the chimney. Could be the scaffold workers who fell during the palace's construction, still arguing over whose fault it was. Your thumb brushes a wall sconce shaped like Poseidon's trident. Careful. The points are sharper than the chef's paring knife. Funny how castles always smell vaguely of wet dog, even without actual dogs. That rhythmic hooting above. Just an owl or Lady Margrave practicing her opera high notes again. You quicken your pace past the dumbwaiter's shaft. Last week's bread rolls still moldering at the bottom. One candle dies with a hiss. You don't relight it. That alcove ahead. Royal guards once hid there to catch adulterous nobles. Now it's home to 4 dead flies and a button engraved with initials you don't recognize. Your keyring jingles as you check the linen closet, still locked, still reeking of lavender sachets from the Louis XIV era. Historians love debating whether those sachets contained actual lavender or, let's say, less legal herbs. A floorboard screams underfoot, the same one that betrayed Queen Charlotte's midnight snack runs. Your flame trembles as you pass the 3rd floor landing. That's not just wax dripping, it's your resolve leaking away. Downstairs, A grandfather clock coughs twice. You've got maybe 20 minutes before the scullery maid wakes and ruins the silence. Your last candle meets its twin in the hall mirror, doubling the light, doubling the shadows. The window shows a moon so full it could have rolled right out of a Van Gogh. For half a heartbeat, you consider opening the casement. Then you remember what happened to the footman who let that bat in last July. Nope, not tonight, not ever. The 82nd candle fitting into its holder, your final task, snaps clean in half. Beeswax, meet marble floor. You leave it there. Let the dawn staff wonder. Dawn, huh? That's 6 hours and approximately 19 more corridors away. Your knuckles brush a tapestry of St. George's dragon and come away suspiciously sticky. Maybe don't question that. Some palace mysteries stay buried for a reason. As you turn toward the servants' stairwell, a cold breath licks your ear. Could be the north wind. Could be the Duke of Pembroke's ghost, still mad about the ugly statue they built over his grave. Either way, you've survived the first stretch. For now, your palms graze iron locks older than the railway system, Victorian-era mechanisms forged when engineers still argued whether steam could outpace horseback. Each keyhole wears a patina of palace secrets. You press an ear to the 5th door, its silent hinges once oiled with whale blubber, harvested off the Shetland Isles. A current of night air slips through, carrying the ghost of bergamot and gunpowder from some duke's abandoned smoking room. Fingers brush a rust-speckled escutcheon. Historians still argue whether master butlers carried lockpicks for emergencies, or if that's just tavern gossip. The spider above you weaves perfect geometry, a better locksmith than London's alleged unpickable Chubb detectors. Its web trembles with your breath, one silken thread quivering like a half-plucked harp string. Moonlight paints an X across 3 untouched doors. You swab the middle key with lavender oil, keeps the ward smooth. Though cook swears ladybugs in the locksmith's workshop, cursed all east wing mechanisms. A tumbler clicks like a mouse's jaw mid-yawn. 3 twists left, the way Regency footmen signaled all secure during Napoleon's scare rumors. Cold brass bites your thumb. One stubborn lock resists, its wards misaligned, since Princess Isabel tried pickpocketing keys for her midnight kitchen raids. You hum a lullaby, often scratched into Georgian hinge plates by homesick staff. The mechanism surrenders with a groan, releasing a whiff of dried rose petals pressed into its keyhole 2 coronations ago. Wind sneaks through the high window, fluttering the spider's silk. Scholars whisper that medieval servants read web patterns like tea leaves. This one spirals clockwise, the same direction Marie Antoinette's seamstresses wound their thread. Your shadow stretches toward the 7th door, its handle smudged, where a nervous ambassador wiped his palm before proposing disastrous trade terms. You pocket the keyring, its weight familiar as your own bones. The spider retreats into a crack, critiquing your technique with 8 silent eyes. Somewhere below, a hound's dream chatter fills the kennels. You count 12 locks secured, 13 if you include the spider's delicate deadbolt of moonlight and patience. You pass gilt-framed ancestors, their old paint, eyes tracking your lantern's sway. 18th century lead white gives their cheeks a corpse's glow. Fun fact, that pigment gave more painters kidney failure than bad wine. One countess clutches a mini dog bred, extinct by 1843. Though cook swears she glimpsed one howling in the midnight stable-yard last winter. Dust motes rise from where young Nell scuttled off, leaving her polishing rag by Emperor Hadrian's armored shin. Historians still argue whether the real Hadrian preferred figs or dates. Your shadow blots out his stone gaze. He's judged pettier men for less. Portrait number 12 curves its lips as you pass. Proserpina Drachmont's infamous smile. They say she blinked during her sitting, though the artist's ledger lists 4 sittings and 1 exorcism. Her pearl necklace coils like a living thing. London's Natural History Museum claims Tudor pearls often came from Baltic werewolf legends. You quicken your pace. A maid's ladder leans against George III's portrait, the one where he's missing a shoe buckle. Palace records show 3 servants fired for borrowing royal footwear between 1780 9179. To coincidence, the king's marble eyes follow your exit, maybe regretting that whole tea tax debacle. Moonlight fingerprints a child's unfinished portrait near the service stair. Its palette smells of linseed oil and apology. The artist fled mid-commission after a duchess called her daughter's nose regrettably Habsburg. You tweak the dust cloth. It billows, settling over the canvas like a ghost accepting surrender. 3 frames hang crooked victims of last week's argument between the Earl and a misdelivered harpsichord. You straighten them using Pugin's golden ratio trick. An inch left, 2/3 down. The 6th Duke of Marlborough glares at corrected angles, still salty about losing Blenheim's West Wing design vote. Dust might swarm a forgotten mending basket beneath Queen Anne's portrait. Her lace ruff resembles a fallen wedding cake, if cake could resent existing. You pocket a loose thimble, tomorrow's problem, only to find your sleeve snagged on Anne's painted ring. Coincidence, archivists found 37 wedding bands sewn into her gown's hem. Protectiveness transcends mortality. A draft flutters Elizabeth I's ermine trim, the one spot where restorers used synthetic fur. Conservationists swear polyester holds gilding better than real pelt. You disagree. The imitation lacks that musky Tudor ambition. The Virgin Queen's eyes narrow, likely judging your life choices. You pause at the upstart Cromwell portrait gallery, interrupted midway through demolition in 1661. Curators left gap-toothed walls where anti-royalists once hung. A mouse nest fills Oliver's absent frame, stuffed with shredded love letters to someone named R. Cavendish. Revolutionaries, it seems, craved cuddles too. Candlelight catches Margaret Beaufort's ringlets, painted with crushed lapis lazuli, worth 3 yeomen's yearly wages. Her gaze drills into your left shoulder blade. You resist checking for stains. Her lifelong obsession with laundry protocols nearly bankrupted the War of the Roses dry cleaners. At the hall's end, a covered portrait leans against wainscoting, its tag reading storage, Rouen, 1412. Peeling the sheet back would cost you a day's wage. You don't. The cloth shifts anyway, revealing a painted hand gripping a scroll signed in blood-red ink. You recover it fast, though the air now tastes of iron and saffron. Your lantern gutters. Time to move on. Behind you, 73 portraits resume their silent parliament. Someone's teeth click. Might been the 15th century bishop, might been the poltergeist that steals single gloves. You file it under unpaid overtime and keep walking. The linen-draped tables stretch into gloom, their folded sheets crisp as a barrister's collar. Every third candelabra remains lit, a Tudor cost-saving trick from the saffron shortage of 1521. Your sleeve brushes a silver tureen lid, it spins, warbling middle C. Some duke's ghost probably misses that note from Purcell's Opera Nights. Beneath the head table's velvet runner, something skitters. You lift the cloth. A mouse freezes mid-nibble on a century-old breadcrumb. Its whiskers twitch reproachfully. Carry on. You murmur, Elizabethan scullions used mice to test for poison. Modern royals just hire food tasters named Clive. Moonlight etches the minstrel gallery's latticed shadows onto the floor. Queen Anne hosted her last banquet here, 8 courses, 3 allergic reactions, 1 collapsed ice sculpture swan. The floorboard beneath the salt cellar still creaks where an archduke vomited peacock paella. You realign the ducal seating chart, still tilted from Lady Charlotte's accidental shove during the 1814 inheritance feud. Historians still argue whether Georgian place cards held hidden insults in their calligraphy. The Duke of Devonshire's name glints faintly. Someone scratched overcompensates beneath the gilding. Dust huddles in gravy boats like timid phantoms. A serviette folded as King Louis XIV's famed swan sags origami was never Mrs. Pembroke's strength. You nudge it upright. The neck droops again. Same, you mutter to the ancestral air. At the high table, an emerald goblet sits apart, its stem smudged. Palace lore claims Catherine Howard sipped hemlock from this cup. Conservationists proved it held mint-tisane in 1987. Still, docents whisper it makes your teeth ache. Your reflection warps in its curve, eyes too tired, cravat askew. The Tudor court would have fined you a week's wages for that knot. Down the table's spine, 78 forks paired with 78 knives. 1 spoon's missing. You check beneath the drape. Lodged in a mouse hole with a walnut shell plug. Smart little scavenger. A draft whispers through the serving door's warped frame. It carries the faint tang of turnip soup from 3 monarchs back, or maybe that's the polish. You test the hinges. They groan like a chorus, disapproving your life's path. 3 tapestries billow their threads fraying where a young prince once tugged them during hide-and-seek. The hunt of unicorn, scenes missing a hound. You peer closer, the gap's been darned with mismatched crimson thread, subtle as a highwayman's handkerchief. Beneath the 3rd window, a wine stain blooms on the flagstones. Scrub maids call it blood of Lady Rochford, though everyone knows she died beheaded, not bludgeoned. You dab it with a sachet of salt and lemon. The spot fades temporarily. Ghosts are tenacious house guests. The chandelier sways, its crystals clickling like a skeleton's wind chimes. 16 bulbs burned out. You'll need a ladder and a vow of silence about the cobwebs. Later, always later. A serviette ring rolls into the darkness. You give chase, stubbing your toe on a loose flagstone. 1805, repair records blamed bad mortar. You blame Lord Hertford's obsession with Irish jigs on marble. The ring gleams under a sideboard, engraved to Bertie, with ambiguous intentions. Royal relatives and their passive aggression. You pause at the dumbwaiter, its pulley wheezing when prodded. The 1793 kitchen fire started here. 3 soufflés sacrificed. So much for the Marquis de Sade's exquisite dessert recommendations. The shaft exhales a grease-scented sigh. Your cravat flutters. 12 high-backed chairs huddle like gossiping dowagers. The one with the lion's claw feet rocks slightly, not the wind, never the wind. You adjust its cushion, plump with goose down and unresolved regrets. At the dessert trolley, a cracked compote dish holds mummified raisins. Regency chronicles called these teeth breakers. Guests pocketed them as party favors. You flick one. It ricochets off a soup tureen, waking the mouse. It glares. You toss a candied violet in apology. The west wall's long case clock thunks, its pendulum dragging through molasses-thick time. Only 7 strikes since you entered. Feels like 70. You trace the face's pearwood grain, same as the coffin they built for Cromwell's second cousin. Cheery thought, beneath the sideboard, a breadcrumb trail vanishes into shadow. You follow it, kneeling on parquet, smoothed by 2 centuries of dropped cutlery. The trail ends at a rat-sized dent in the wainscoting. Inside, a hoard of pilfered sugar cubes and 1 garnet cufflink. His lordship's been looking for that. A portrait of Henry VIII glowers from above the hearth, his codpiece, defying physics and decorum. Courtiers wrote entire sonnets about that thing. Bad sonnets. You resist the urge to adjust it, tilted since George Ivy's merry wrestling match with a footman. The service bell's rope sways, untouched. Its echo haunts the plasterwork. Queen Mary II band midnight ringers after the Great Peel Plague of 1699. Your fingers itch to test it. You don't. Probably. Mouse claws scritch near the cheese dome. You lift it empty, save for a crumb mosaic of the Battle of Hastings. William the Conqueror's face looks oddly smug. As you exit, the linen shroud on table 7 billows, revealing carved initials beneath, a +E inside a heart. Anne Boleyn's hand, the scullion who stole her ring in 1535. The cloth settles, secrets intact. Your lantern flares, revealing the dust on your knees. Palace regulations forbid undignified dishevelment. So does the portrait of Cardinal Wolsey smirking by the door. You swipe at the worst of it. The mouse watches, judging your half measures. A final sweep of the silverware, all present now, except the spoon. The moonflower's perfume seeps through a cracked window. Nearly dawn. Somewhere past the salt cellar, the linen ripples once more. You pretend not to notice. Some battles aren't yours to fight, not when breakfast scones need counting, and the East Tower stairs await their turn. You click the double doors shut. Behind you, a sugar cube clatters onto marble, a tiny white flag raised in truce. You climb the grand staircase. Each step whispers a monarch's name underfoot. Edward eyes oak groans, with Welsh longbow tension, still sore about that castle tax. Wind hisses through fractured stained glass, its melody stolen from a Celtic war chant nobody remembers. Your shadow scales the wall, stretched thin by Norman stonework. 37 steps, always 37, even after that renovation where they added 3 and pretended not to. Halfway up, the 9th stair stays mute. No Henry V here, just a gap where Cromwell's men pried the nameplate loose. Some claim it creaks Agincourt's battle hymns at dawn. You've only ever heard rats. A spiderweb bridges the void, strung between Plantagenet and Tudor. Diplomacy, palace style. The landings, rose window slices moonlight into Luther's face, smuggled into the glasswork by a reformist glazier. His mosaic eyes track you. 5 shreds of blue cling to the tracery. Napoleonic cannon fires encore. History's just vandalism with better lighting. Your lantern flares. For a heartbeat, the Reformation winks. Left turn, the balustrade dips, where Anne Boleyn's ring snagged during her final descent. Guides swear indents match her ring size. Conservationists blame Victorian tourists. Your glove brushes the spot, cold as the tower in May. 3 scratches mar the wood. A child's tally, Catherine Howard's plea. The stone sucks warmth from your palm. West-facing panes buzz like angry hornets. 1703, storm damage, never properly fixed. Lead cames rattle out Morse code for help. You hum Purcell's trumpet voluntary to drown it out. The glass shakes, so does your resolve. At the 7th step, George III's nameplate wobbles. His madness soaked into the grain, syrup thick, and twice as sticky. 3rd floor Newell Post hosts a mouse metropolis. They've upholstered their nest with threads from Mary Tudor's lost tapestries. Breeding program or art heist. You toss a crushed biscuit. Their tiny queen inclines her head. Royalty recognizes royalty. Above, William the Conqueror's step splinters, Norman arrogance, outlasting the actual Normans. Splinters seek your stockinged ankle. Victorian carpet swallows your footsteps, too thick by half. Albert imported it after slipping on Henry VII's vomit stain. 53 roses per square foot. You've counted. Insomnia fuels peculiar hobbies. The patterns off near the top, weavers snuck in a kangaroo holding a pint. Colonial humor dies hard. Final flight, wind screams through arrow slits. Bloody Mary's confessor bricked them up in 1555. Charles II unbricked them for ventilation. Now icy drafts mimic Catherine of Aragon's funeral dirge. Your cravat flaps like a surrendering flag. The top step bears Victoria's hidden initials, scratched during her coronation panic attack. HRH approved stress relief. Tower door looms, ironclad and sulking. Touch the handle, still warm from Wolsey's grip, if you believe the staff. You believe the draft. Hinges shriek Tudor opera, you wince. Beyond lies the clock chamber, the star maps, the cold bite of centuries. But first, press your ear to the paneling. The staircase hums. 37 kings murmur your name. You step through. The door slams, a punctuation mark for the ages. The jasmine hits first, cloying sweet beneath the doorframe's draft. You nudge it open with your elbow. Always the elbow. Protocol demands no fingerprints on Her Majesty's privacy. Moonlight lacquers the tea service. A Dresden porcelain sleeping, pill 18 place, settings deep, but only one cup's poured. Earl Grey gone tarry, oil slick rainbows cling to the surface. Brits didn't always take milk first. Georgian-era snobs reverse engineered it to save their fancy cups. Too thin china cracked under boiling Assam, so they buffered with dairy. This cup, bone china thick as a wedding vow. Milk sloshes curdled in the pitcher underneath. Nobody told the kitchen about the change in schedule. Or the century. You press a thumb to the saucer. Still cold. Good means the under-butler hasn't lingered. His affair with the third footman leaves condensation rings on the silver. The chair yawns empty, its cushion indented by 300 years of royal backsides. Horsehair pokes through brocade, Victorian restoration at its finest. Curtains smell like a perfumer's panic attack. Jasmine layered over clove, over ambergris, designed to mask the 1689 plague outbreak. They rehung the drapery daily, boiling the velvet in rosewater, while corpses piled in the mews. You sneeze. 17 generations of dust. Mites salute your sinuses. Place card says HRH in fading ink, but the sugar tongs point west. Code among the staff when the royals actually coming. These face northeast, straight at the concealed moonshine cabinet. Historians still argue whether Queen Anne invented the gin fizz or just appropriated it from a Dutch stable boy. The ledger says tonic for palsy. The empty bottles say Tuesday. Biscuit tower lists like Pisa. Someone nibbled the edges of a shortbread, mouse, or disgruntled scullery maid. You crumble a corner, ginger snaps back. Palace recipes used actual ground sapphire for blue frosting until Prince Alfred choked on a cake topper. Digestible glitter now whatever that means. Tastes like disappointment and food dye. Tea caddies locked, always locked. They lost the key during the Blitz, replaced it with a letter opener from Versailles. Inside, 3 tiers of tins labeled in Marie Antoinette's looping cursive. She sent them as a joke gift 3 months before losing her head. French humor ages like milk. Window seat groans when you kneel. Hidden compartments crammed with music hall tickets and a dried corsage. Prince Albert Victor's unclaimed boutonniere from the night he ditched his own engagement ball. Smells like lavender and bad decisions. You pocket the petals, compost material for the East greenhouse. A flicker in the samovar's reflection could be a ghost, could be sleep deprivation. Palace mirrors use 80% tin in the backing, Elizabethan recipe for clearer visions. You check your cravat, still straight, still strangling you softly. The reflection blinks first. Floorboard creaks a perfect G-sharp, same as the opening note of Handel's Water music. Coincidence, or some dead composer haunting the joists? You tap the rhythm of God, save the king with your heel. The house clicks back, 3 beats off, treasonous acoustics. Moth bounces off the chandelier, single bulb left burning since Edward VII's abdication speech. Staff won't touch it. Superstition says extinguishing it collapses the monarchy. Energy bills a nightmare. You adjust the chain drops of crystal braille against your wrist. Her Majesty's napkin remains folded, swan creased so sharply it could draw blood. You've seen scullery maids cry over these pleats. Underneath, faint lipstick smudges spelling no in Georgian dialect. Maybe a servant's protest, maybe a queen's last word. Silk absorbs truths better than ledgers. Clock on the mantel ticks backward. French-made gift from Napoleon's exiled nephew. Keeps perfect time if you ignore the spinning hands. You wind it anyway, ritual over reason. 14 turns, always 14, until the key bites your palm. Decanters down 3 fingers of brandy, but the stool sits 20 paces away. Classic, I'm not drinking alone geometry. Portraits pretend not to judge, their eyes cut sideways. A Tudor spaniel in Lady Waltham's lap licks painted ale off her slipper. Dinner parties here must have been wild. You reposition the sugar bowl 1/4 inch left to cover the water stain. 1812 Treaty of Ghent was signed here. Inkwell leaked onto the mahogany. Diplomacy leaves stains that even lemon juice can't lift. The lilac sprig in the vase sheds petals. Each one lands on a different saucer, defying entropy or a bored gardener's prank. Hearths colder than a banker's smile. Last fire lit for Victoria's golden jubilee, embers lasted 50 years. Chimneys bricked up since the Raven incident. You trace the soot lines, finger coming back gray. Ancestors of those birds still caw at the windows, wings weighted by inherited grudges. One last check, napkin rings aligned, spoons at perfect 90 degrees. You step back, your heel grinds a lone sugar cube into powder. The room exhales, Tea steam finally still, curtains holding their breath until morning. Moonflower vines snake across your path, clinging to the courtyard's wrought iron like drunken aristocrats. You part the ivy, cool leaves sticking to your palms like botanical bandages. Night bloomers thrive here, their alabaster petals unfurling with the precision of a Marie Antoinette fan dance. New World explorers brought these specimens from Mexico, kings paid in gold for what now grows wild by the compost heap. The bud under your inspection pulses, veins luminescent as gaslight through parchment. Victorians swore these blooms repelled witches, probably why the Queen's mother planted 50 along the privy walls. You've seen gardeners talk to them, argue with them, once betroth a sickly sprout to a prize turnip. Horticultural madness runs deep here. Gloves catch on thorns disguised as tendrils, nature's oldest trick. Your lantern reflects off the petals, turning each into a mini-moon. 3 floors up, a nursemaid's dim nightlight blinks in sync. Coincidence? Or some sleep-deprived servant playing Morse code games? Soil shifts underfoot, buried terracotta shards from Henry VII's smashed wine jugs. Tudor recycling at its finest. Kneeling, you spot the gardener's secret, a whiskey flask wedged between roots. MacGregor's compost tea explains his rosy pruning technique. Speaking of, there's his signature, a carved X on the trellis, where he grafts roses onto blackberry canes. Illegal, but the resulting blooms hemorrhage crimson in August. Scent hits like a stage curtain, rising gardenia meets overripe melon. Dangerous perfume, 3 ladies in waiting fainted here during a 1742 lunar eclipse. Court documents blame miasma. You blame amateur horticulturalists huffing datura pollen. A petal brushes your wrist, leaving a glow that lingers. Survivors of the Great Frost of 1684 wrote about this, used the flowers as path markers during endless nights. Historians still argue whether moonflower extract really spiked the Bishop of London's communion wine during the heresy trials. The current head gardener, 3 shots into his flask, swears he can replicate the recipe. Ivy resists as you close the lattice gate, rusty hinge singing flat C above the nursery light flickers off, pitching the garden into temporary blindness. You freeze, boot halfway through a step until your eyes adjust. Night vision reveals the moonflower's truth. Each blossom glows weakest where the head groom urinates on Tuesdays. Frog splashes into the reflecting pool, ripples distorting floating petals into finger bones. You toss a pebble, dispelling the illusion with a plonk. 34 years since Princess Charlotte slipped here, her lost sapphire still winks up from the silt every blue moon. Groundskeepers call it the palace's third eye, polish it with vodka when the head housekeeper's away. Wind carries the baker's pre-dawn clatter, flower dust motes visible through his lit window. The moonflower trembles, its glow dimming as true dawn threatens. Night shifts in this place, never truly dark, never fully lit. You pluck a spent bloom, velvet soft, and already collapsing inward, it dissolves into sludge. By the time you reach the service gate, beauty on a timer. Your shadow stretches ahead long enough to trip the courtyard's resident ghost. Or maybe it's just Mrs. Norris, the one-eared cat, baiting you into chasing her through the topiary again. You resist barely as the stable clock groans through its 5 a.m. aria. 2 more rounds before sunrise, each step now flavored with the moonflower's fading musk. The library door opens with the sigh of someone interrupted mid-thought. You enter sideways, shoulder first, to avoid disturbing the equilibrium. Leather spines exhale centuries of dust as you pass. Octavian's campaigns pressed between pages like dried violets. Your candle flame bobs, illuminating a maple leaf bookmark, fossilized in a volume on spice roots. 17th century librarians used tobacco leaves for pest control. Explains why this room smells like a Havana cigar box. A warped shelf groans under Newton's Principia, leaning sideways. You straighten it, thumb brushing gold, embossing worn smooth by royal fingers. 1834 catalog notes claim Byron's bulldog once peed on this very edition, probably why volume II still won't lie flat. Somewhere behind you, a paper edge trembles. Could be a draft, could be the ghost of that monk who invented margins. You pause at the geography section, atlas pages curling like autumn leaves. Your shadow falls across Marco Polo's description of Kublai Khan's court, right where someone scribbled lyre in Victorian pencil. Medieval copyists added their own flair. One included a recipe for hedgehog pie in a Salter's footnote. The head archivist swears 12th century rats favored pigskin bindings over sheepskin chewier. Apparently, breath catches as you dislodge a volume on Ottoman textiles, its pages releasing a pressed camellia from the Crimean War. Petals drift onto your boot, still blushing pink after a century and a half. Scholars debate whether Gutenberg's Bible was a communal fever dream. Half his typesetters claimed seeing words move like ants post-print. You found enough coffee stains in these pages to keep an entire monastery wired. 4 floorboards creak rhythmically as you cross to the Restoration poetry shelf. Those 6 fungus spots on the carpet form the same constellation pattern as Queen Anne's rashes. Coincidence or evidence of her famed meteorite allergy? The books here slump like drunk dandies, their spines cracking as you nudge them upright. Moonlight slips through ivy-choked windows, checkerboarding the study table. A quill rests in a dried inkwell, last dip still staining the tip Barnum and Bailey red. You swipe a thumb across Scott's Ivanhoe, smearing 3 decades of grime into a Rorschach blot resembling Napoleon's hat. 1587 marginalia. In this copy claims Richard the Lionheart died of bad lutefisk. Historians still argue whether that's slander or Scandinavia's greatest flex. The maple leaf crumbles when lifted, its skeletal veins mapping forgotten trade winds. 3 drafts collide above the astronomy texts, swirling dust into mini cyclones over Copernicus's head. You catch yourself naming them: Hurricane Earl Grey, Typhoon Biscuit, Storm Crumpet, the grandfather clock in the alcove tuts. It's 5:18 a.m., and you're anthropologizing air currents. Footprints linger near the banned books cabinet, Admiral's Daughters, slipper marks from forbidden Rousseau readings. You straighten the doom painting tapestry, hiding the lock. Its depiction of hell, conveniently scorched where the keyhole burns through. Rumors claim Cardinal Wolsey's ghost rearranges shelves. Last month's misplaced lives of saints turned up in the erotic poetry section. Anyone's guess if that's spectral vengeance or the underlibrarian's midnight indiscretion. Candle wax drips onto your cuff, solidifying into a makeshift seal for some imaginary decree. Through high windows, the east sky pales from bruise purple to watered wine. Even libraries hold their breath before dawn, pages stiffening like Butler's straightening post-nap spines. You exit backward, hand lingering on the doorframe as the first sparrow's chirp breaches the silence. The books resume their whispering before the latch clicks shut. The spiral stairs shred your shins with every step, stone edges honed by 2 centuries of Butler shins before yours. Grit from the tower walls dusts your collar, ancient mortar mixed with 18th century coal soot. Your lantern gutters, casting a Rorschach shadow that could be either a grinning bat or Queen Mary's signature poodle wig. 12 iron gears loom overhead, their teeth gnashing minutes into powder. The great clock's heartbeat thrums through your souls, palace timekeeping, upgraded after Queen Victoria missed a opera's 3rd act by 90 minutes. Each brass pendulum swing paints the air with oil smell, like a robot's version of lavender sachets. You check your waistcoat pocket. The watch's ticking syncopates with the mechanism above. 17 stone steps left your shoulder, brushes a mural of Kronos eating his children. Paint flakes off on your jacket, tastes like someone burned a trigonometry textbook. Clockmakers once hid zodiac signs in gear ratios. This one's Capricorn tooth allegedly chipped when a junior engineer tried setting hands with a black forest ham. Midnight's tremor rolls through the chamber, 12 strikes hammered into the tower's marrow. You count each metallic cough, 11-12, as your watch whispers XII in Swiss precision. Historians still argue whether medieval water clocks inspired these mechanics, or if monks just really missed hearing their own intestines gurgle. Rusted access panels line the walls, one bulges where a maintenance man stuffed his lunch pail in 1894. The cuckoo's been dead for decades, its corpse replaced by a sparrow skeleton wired to a music box. Your breath fogs the mainspring casing, revealing graffiti from the clock's installer. Precision is just organized rage. 3 oil reservoirs glisten below the escapement wheel. You refill them with whale blubber rendered during the Great Exhibition. One drip escapes, plunges 80 feet onto a footman's forgotten tricorn hat. Fourth floor maids claim the splashes sound like Morse code for repent. Wind wheezes through arrow slits, tuning the tower into a giant stone ocarina. Your lantern dims for 3 heartbeats. The gears glow with foxfire lichen scraped from the north tower. 18th century engineers swore the fungus kept mechanisms lubed during droughts. Modern horologists call that romantic barnacle logic. The last strike's echo dies your watch, confirms the marriage of iron and quartz. Somewhere below, a scullery maid yawns her sigh, riding the weight pulley ropes up to your perch. You flick a cobweb off the regulator dial. Its spider glares before repelling into darkness. Maintenance logs show 374 pigeons vaporized in these gears since installation. Feathers still pepper the governor's casing like morbid confetti. Downstairs, the wine cellar's foundation stones hum with transmitted vibrations. 19th century footmen timed sneaking seconds between patrols by the tremors. Your glove comes away streaked with soot and copper verdigris, patina as iridescent as a wet crow's wing. For half a breath, the clock pauses, gears holding their metallic tongues before resuming their chewing of eternity. One final inspection of the hammer springs, still taut enough to ring a dead empress's ears in the family crypt. You retreat as the tower resumes humming its low C, a note that once made the ambassador's pet peacock molt mid-bow. The service stairs swallow you whole, each step down erasing a minute of your vigil. Your watch ticks on, smug in its chain-linked nest above a butler's steadily slowing heart. You push open the stable doors, the hinges groan drowned by 37 swishing tails. Mares shift in sweet hay, their legs pumping phantom gallops through dream meadows. That bay near the trough, she's Napoleon's great-great-great-grandmare. Stable records claim her lineage survived Waterloo by hiding in a butter churn. Hay dust sparkles in your lantern light, each mote a miniature comet. One gelding's nostrils flare at your approach, equine sleep apnea, puffing rhythmically. Since the palace hosted that Moldavian diplomat, 18th century ostlers swore sugar cubes cured midnight whinnies. You opt for scratching his favorite ear instead. The youngest mare, Buttercup, though the head groom calls her Hoofzilla, nudges your elbow. Her breath smells of orchard windfalls and existential despair. You produce the apple core saved from the kitchen's scrap bin, its brown flesh still glistening with saliva from the third under Butler's midnight snack. Horseshoe nails ping against stone as a draft horse rolls upright, her iron shoes worn thin from pulling 6 generations of royal brats in pointless sleigh rides. Stable boys once greased hooves with bare fat during frosts. You've upgraded to leftover candle wax from the chapel. A ripple passes through the herd, muscle memory of cavalry charges etched into DNA. That dapple gray by the window, her ancestor carried Cardinal Richelieu's love letters in a secret saddle compartment. Historians still argue whether war horses understood their role in history or just really hated the smell of gunpowder. You check the hay nets for mouse nests. Last month's infestation left one filly sneezing in iambic pentameter. The barn cat watches from the rafters, her tail switching like a metronome set to murder. 3 empty stalls still bear tooth marks from a visiting zebra's identity crisis in 1892. Buttercup crunches the apple core, her eyelids drooping mid-chew. The sound echoes through the loft where Alfred, son of Alfred sleeps. 7th generation head groom snoring in perfect harmony with the hitching post's creak. You rub liniment onto a gelding's swollen fetlock. The salve recipe unchanged, since a medieval farrier mistook turmeric for dragon's blood. His sigh fogs your sleeve, condensing into droplets that'll leave salt rings by dawn. Moonlight leaks through broken shingles, painting a zebra stripe pattern on a percheron's back. 54 horses blink in unison, their lashes whispering secrets against cheek leather. That's normal, right? Totally normal. You think about Googling it later, then remember it's 1884. A barn swallow dive bombs your lantern, its beak snapping up moths drawn to the flame. You dodge on reflex, elbow knocking over a tack box. 32 brass jingle bells roll across the floor, their jangling panic summoning Alfred, son of Alfred's sleep-slurred curse from the loft. Buttercup stamps once her version of a sarcastic slow clap. You pocket 3 bells as souvenirs Christmas gifts for the scullery twins who still believe in Krampus. The rest get tossed into the grain bin. The oats will muffle their treasonous tinkling. Frost patterns bloom on water troughs, crystallized ferns that outshine the greenhouse's forced blooms. You skim off the ice, toss a chunk to the barn cat. She bats it with murder-mittened paws, skidding into a wheelbarrow full of questionable manure. One stallion's midnight snack escapes. A carrot rolls towards the dung heap. His despairing whinny could melt a Tudor portrait's frosty glare. You intercept the vegetable, exchange it for peppermint stolen from the ambassador's after-dinner tray. Hoofbeats thud against dreams in the east stalls. 8 horses, reliving the great hunt of 1793. Their snorts puff constellations into the chill, Orion's belt adjusted for equine aesthetics. You pat a sweat-damp neck, the musk of ghostly gallops clinging to your glove. The barn cat deposits a headless rat by your boot, her version of a Yelp review. You praise her technique. She pretends not to care while preening blood from her whiskers. Alfred, son of Alfred, snores through the carnage, dreaming of hay bales shaped like his ex-wife. Buttercup noses your pocket her quest for second breakfast eternal. You surrender a crust of black bread reclaimed from the duck pond. She accepts this tribute with regal indifference, mane trembling like a Victorian widow's veil in a hurricane. Dawn's first blush stains the horizon, telling the cocks 3 hours early. You douse the lantern, exit, as shadows reclaim the stable. The iron latch clicks shut behind you, sealing 37 horses back into their velvet dark dreams of open fields beyond palace walls. You step from stable musk into the cellar's throat, wet stone walls pressing closer with each descending stair. Candlelight warps the wine racks into a fossilized beast skeleton, Bordeaux bottles glinting like amber trapped between ribs. Cold licks your collar, reminding you why Tudor footmen stuffed their breeches with lamb's wool during cellar duty. The cook's one-eyed tomcat hisses at a shelf of dessert wines, claws scoring grooves in an oak cask's moldering side. 1842 port gathers dust here, left untouched since a duke's allergic nephew turned blue at his christening. Your boot nudges a rat-knotted ledger, its pages detailing a king's order for 1,500 casks to mask his dysentery tonic. Vinegar mothers drift in barrels like jellyfish, their translucent limbs reaching for surface air. You've read Pompeii's wine shops kept similar colonies, though theirs probably didn't reek of 19th century root vegetables. That murky jug by the ale kegs, chef claims it's mead, but your nose insists it's a failed embalming experiment. A spiderweb catches your candle's heat, contracting like a lung above a Rhine wine pyramid. Historians still argue whether medieval cellars doubled as panic rooms during peasant revolts, or just stocked enough booze to numb the nobles through crises. Your fingers brush a brick stamped with Louis XIV's crest, the Sun King's pride now frosting over in a puddle. The cat spits at something behind you, whirls to face empty air. 3 decades down here taught you not to turn around. That sticky spot near the Madeira. Palace lore says a groundskeeper dissolved in that corner after drinking garnet-red tonic sold by a Victorian charlatan. Drafts pluck at candle flames, casting spider shadow giants on the vaulted ceiling. You straighten a tilting talk-edge bottle, its piers fizzing with a 1924 rebellion's disappointment. Corks bob in puddles, miniature life rafts from a century's worth of midnight tastings. Your sleeve snags a web, silk threads humming with the spider's outrage. 8 legs skitter across your knuckles, the Pinot Grigio guardian reclaiming her domain. Late Queen Margaret once demanded cellar spiders be gilded. Her footman gave up after 9 minutes and a dozen bites. The tomcat leaps onto a champagne crate, nudges a moth-eaten ledger open with his nose. Shipping manifests from 1789 list, fortification. Supplies, crates of brandy sandwiched between gunpowder and Georgian corset stays. Something crunches underfoot. A mouse skull, fossilized in leaked molasses from a fractured jug. You count 9 new cracks in the north wall, Frost's cursive handwriting on medieval mortar. They say Catherine, the Great's architects, designed these cellars to mimic St. Petersburg's ice caves, never anticipating how English damp would warp the geometry. A centipede ripples through candlelight, its shadow briefly mimicking the palace's serpentine drain pipes. Cobwebs shiver as you pass, filtering dust into something nearly poetic. Your candle gutters, casting a Rorschach blot that resembles the late head gardener's nose. The tomcat's growl harmonizes with a distant door slam, silences vinyl record briefly skipping. You pause before Napoleon III's brandy collection, each bottle's wax seal marred by teeth marks. That's Mrs. Pickering's Work, the terrier, who once mistook Bonaparte's reserves for chew toys. Her barking ghost reportedly still haunts the larder. You make a mental note to toss her moldy beef scrap later. 2 wine barrels sweat onto the floor, creating Venn diagrams of neglect. A mushroom sprouts from between them, its gills breathing cellar spores in perfect iambic pentameter. You remember Italian nuns using similar fungi to dye choir robes in the 1500s. The colors allegedly outshone stained glass. The cat pounces on a cork, its battle cry muffled by centuries-old patina. Your candle reflects in a shattered absinthe bottle, green glass teeth grinning up from the flagstones. 5 years back, a sous chef tried hallucinating here. He woke convinced the pickled beets were plotting mutiny. Frost feathers across a sherry cask, its vintage label now just a nicotine stain. Merchants in old Marseille believed cold wines turned vengeful, served too chilled. They'd curse diners with 3 days of hiccups. You rub warmth into your palms, friction briefly overpowering the damp's clammy handshake. Damp orchestral music trickles through air ducts. Some footman's illicit radio playing through tinny speakers. The cat's ear twitches in time to a clarinet solo, his remaining eye narrowed at a cask of suspiciously lumpy cider. By the stairwell, a bottle of 96 proof rum weeps sticky tears down its neck. You tilt it upright, the gesture as pointless as straightening paintings during an earthquake. The first butlers here stored gunpowder in these vaults until they learned what brandy spills due to unstable nitrate. The tomcat stiffens, hackles rising as seconds tick toward some silent crescendo. 11 cellar rats watch from the champagne shelves, their eyes gleaming like a satanic advent calendar. You blow out the candle, plunging everything into liquid darkness. 100 corks creak in their bottles, 10,000 trapped sighs waiting for morning. Your shoes leave cellar damp on the nursery rug, crunching sugar-spun frost underfoot. The music box turns its rusty waltz atop the toy chest, each revolution fraying the lullaby's hem. You catch the scent of soured milk and lavender sachets. Victorian nurseries swore by that mix to ward off night terrors. A porcelain doll's head rolls under the crib, its glass eyes reflecting the tune's jagged edges. 3 windmills still, half-cranked rotations left by a toddling prince 70 years back. Your thumbnail flicks the music box's key. It bites flesh in protest. Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz supposedly commissioned this piece, though the composer's name vanished like biscuit crumbs in nursery ledgers. The melody hiccups past a bent tooth in the cylinder. Beethoven's Für Elise, devolving into a drunkard's stumble. Moonlight silvers the alphabet blocks, they're carved, W worn smooth from royal teething. Historians still argue whether vintage lead paint tastes sweeter than modern acrylics. The toddlers never tattled. You nudge a hobby horse, its mane shedding horsehair, onto a dried puddle of chamomile tea. That stain's older than your grandfather's first uniform, older than the joke about his wig catching fire during George III's birthday parade. The music box gasps, spits out 2 final notes before ceasing. Your palm cups the mechanism, warmth reviving its brass intestines. Nursery maids in colonial Boston hid love letters in these compartments, their starch-aproned rebellion against Puritan postmen. Squatting here, you briefly understand the appeal. A draft plucks at the mobile tin planets orbiting a tarnished sun. 5 constellations peer through the bay window, Orion's belt, loosened by a rook's nest in the oak. You realign the music box's gears, each click echoing the pendulums in the long gallery clock tower. That's when you spot it, a pearl button wedged under the rug's fringe. Princess Amalia's christening gown lost 7 of these. Servants turned palace hallways into coastal tide pools, searching for them. Wind rifles through a storybook, left open at Sleeping Beauty, illustrations flapping like moth wings. A pressed violet marks the poisoning scene, its purple faded to the gray of twilight nursemaid uniforms. Your candle exposes scribbles in the margin, a teenage governess practicing her signature beside a doodled goat. The music box surrenders, its spring coiling tight beneath your thumb. 1890s patents show nurses rewinding these during croup attacks, believing the vibrations would shake phlegm loose. You release the mechanism. It whirs like a sparrow trapped in a biscuit tin. Dust motes swirl where the tune collides with cold air, brief constellations, mapping nothing. 3 pacifiers mold in a silver porringer, their rubber nibs chewed by generations of princely gums. A nursery rhyme drifts up from the kitchens, some scullion butchering raka by baby while scrubbing burnt pudding pans. Your cuff catches on the crib's finial, embroidered ivy vines snagging wool. 34 nannies quit this room between 1882 and 1910. Their resignation letters citing unnatural draft phenomena and malicious alterations to bedtime story plots. The current Prince outgrew rattles decades back, but the mobile still sways when the east wing elevator moves. Frost etches a lullaby's lyrics on the window pane, each word dissolving as you breathe. The music box winds down again, its last gasp stretching the final note into a yawn. You imagine Mozart composing this tune mid-sneeze, the elegance compromised by an inconvenient tickle. A shadow shifts in the rocking chair, its silhouette suggesting a nanny's bonnet for half a heartbeat. The palace archives mention a nurse who supposedly lulled 7 royal infants to sleep while secretly writing anarchist manifestos by night. Her ghost reportedly still corrects grammar in the storybooks. You straighten the punctuation in Little Red Riding Hood just in case. The music box goes quiet, its metallic heartbeat flatlining. Your index finger traces the mother-of-pearl inlay, lacquer worn thin by 2 centuries of insomniac attendance. 7 gears, 12 pins, 1 stubborn screw, the components of borrowed time. Another crank, another 30 seconds of diluted coherence. Wax drips onto the toy chest, forming a miniature candle graveyard at the music box's base. You hum the missing measures, your voice cracking where the gears rusted. The window latch surrenders to a gust, inviting December to rifle through yesterday's alphabet song. Moonlight rewinds across the floor, retreating from the dollhouse's thatched roof. You leave the music box spinning, its resurrected melody smoothing the night's creases. Silence will reclaim it by dawn. Silence always does. Your lantern light recoils from the sword racks, blades dulled by centuries of make-believe bloodshed. Blunted training swords sag on iron hooks, like disappointed fathers, belts waiting for naughty princelings. Viking thralls once polished real blades with urine. Historians confirm the ammonia kept edges biting through chainmail. The rust on these, probably just royal sweat from seventh son dueling lessons. A draft whistles through arrow slits, your candle gutters, but holds. 1734's armsmaster left detailed notes. His cure for sword shyness involved honey cakes and threats. The west wall still wears his tally marks, 97 bouts won before the gout took him. That faint clang could be ancient gauntlets knocking in the storage chests, could be the north wind's idea of comedy. You run a finger along a practice buckler, its leather grip softened by dead squires' palms. Tudor pages trained here until their knuckles bled, 8 hours daily, unless the king needed comedians. Historians still argue whether Elizabeth practiced here in disguise. Those Van Dyck sketches of a red-haired duelist fuel decades of speculation. You half expect her ghost to demand a rematch, though she'd probably critique your posture first. Moonlight slicks the floor where combat manuals molder under dust. That musk, equal parts oiled steel and adolescent panic, smells like your nephew's locker room after rugby finals. A cobweb stretches between 2 halberds. Its architect dangles like a tiny chandelier above your head. Napoleon's troops allegedly looted the Whetstone collection. You glance at the empty shelf and mutter vive la resistance to the spiders. Your shadow duels the weapon racks as you pass, losing badly to a 15th century pike. 1782's fencing treatise lies open on an oak stool, its margins filled with doodles of mustachioed tutors. The inked faces resemble Winston Churchill, if Churchill had spent his youth being jabbed by a page. You straighten the pages, no sense letting ghosts critique your housekeeping. A breastplate's dented cuirass holds last night's rainwater your reflection warps in the rusty puddle. Polish that, and it'd make a fine soup tureen for giants. 3 crossbow bolts nest in the ceiling beams, testaments to a young duke's disastrous upward defense strategy. Field medics used pig bladders as medieval ice packs, oddly relevant knowledge as a cold drip slides down your collar. The rattling starts when you lift a vambrace, its leather laces singing like plucked gut strings. 16th century smiths added wolf bone powder to forge fires. Superstition claimed it made steel hungrier. You half believe it. The chill crawling your spine has nothing to do with drafts. A moth flees the pauldron's shadow, its wings beating out the rhythm of a long-dead marching song. Your boot scuffs a groove worn in the flagstones, centuries of lunges, digging a valley for hesitation. Royal armorers soaked mail in vinegar to prevent elf rust, 1 part practicality, 9 parts paranoia. The vinegar smell's gone now, replaced by the tang of wet wool drying too slowly. You inhale deeply anyway, it's either that or the moldy gambeson in the corner. A practice Quinton creaks on its pivot, its sandbag fist swinging at phantoms. Jousting dummies wore actual criminals' clothes during Henry VII's reign. Nothing motivates like the threat of public laundry duty. The dummy's current outfit: Regency-era banyan robe with gravy stains raided from the ambassador's lost luggage collection. You adjust its lopsided wig, someone's idea of a joke, when the mood strikes. Shadows congeal near the archery targets, their straw bellies sprouting feathers from forgotten contests. Victorian tutors hid candied plums in bullseyes, bribery masquerading as marksmanship incentives. The last plum likely fossilized during Victoria's Diamond Jubilee. You're not prying it loose without a chisel. A mouse peeks from the target's heart, its whiskers twitching at your wasted opportunity. Your lantern reveals a stiletto wedged in a ceiling beam, handle dangling a torn favor ribbon. 23 love notes mention this very knife. Palace archivists call it the Cupid's quarrel incident of 1812. The blades still sharp, trust star-crossed lovers to maintain their dramatics. You let it be. Some stories cut deeper if left unresolved. Frost etches floral patterns on a visor's eye slit, delicate as the lace it once protected. A sneeze escapes before you can muffle it. The sound ricochets off sallets and greaves like a misfired quarrel. Swiss mercenaries believed armor echoed with past wearers' voices, arguing that steel absorbs arguments like wine stains silk. The breeze carries a faint Gesundheit anyway, courtesy of your overactive imagination or underpaid respect for the dead. You count 17 dents in the luckiest breastplate, each engraved with the date it turned blade. The 18th dense blank rumor says it's reserved for the next prince who forgets his footwork. Palace records mention a squire who painted his armor with lime wash, thinking it made him invisible during night drills. The scrape marks near the privy suggest he overestimated his camouflage skills. Dust puffs from a gauntlet when you flip its palm upward lines, caked with the grime of fake surrenders. Medieval cures for sword wounds included onion poultices. And praying to Saint Barbara, you make a note to avoid both. The gauntlet's middle finger joint sticks, history's least subtle comment on diplomatic negotiations. Moonlight bleeds through high windows, cutting the racks into slanting silver and black. 36 tourney lances lean like drunken sentries, their tips still wearing lipstick kisses from misguided admirers. You right a toppled tabard, its embroidered lions now cross-eyed from improper folding. A chill nips your earlobe, identical to the wind that distracted Earl Pembroke during his infamous 1789 disarmament. The cathead clock on the south wall croaks 3, its rusty wagtail tail missing mid-pendulum swing. Dawn's still hours off, but the armory's already sighing into tomorrow's neglect. You rub a thumb over tarnish on a parade shield, the royal crest emerging like a half-remembered dream. Keys jingle in your pocket time to let the ghosts resume their shadow boxing in peace. Your departing shadow salutes the weapon racks. They respond with a clatter that could be farewell, could be a gauntlet dropping. Either way, the mice will have the final word. The spiral stair shrinks your world to stone curves, and the scent of wax-dipped rope, your lantern gutters, starved for air this high above the kitchens. The observatory door creaks a protest, its brass handle colder than a comet's heart. Inside, the telescope squats under a shroud of dust, a cyclops blinded by decades of uninterested heirs. Galileo's first lenses were smuggled in spice crates. Venetian glass blowers risked arrest to craft the devil's vinegar. You swipe the eyepiece, your sleeve comes back gray with dead constellations. Cobwebs drape the equatorial mount like lace on a widow's veil. The dome's shutter mechanism groans. Rust flakes blizzard around your shoes. 16th century stargazers timed eclipses with hourglasses filled with powdered jade, believed to slow time's decay. The crank sticks halfway, leaving a sliver of sky peering through rotten teeth. Your shoulder slams the gear. It gives with a screech that wakes bats in the rafters. Moonlight bleeds across the lens, now a petri dish for moth carcasses. Persian astronomers charted Venus's path using fermented camel milk as ink. So claims a water-stained folio in the library. You squint, 83 stars prick the murk before clouds smear them. Historians still argue if the Star of Bethlehem was Jupiter's dance or a supernova's last gasp. The wind shifts, vanishing 3 pinpricks mid-count. Your breath fogs the eyepiece, a temporary galaxy. Victorian ladies knitted telescope cozies to keep optics warm for clearer viewing, suffered frostbite, proving yarn beats physics. You half expect a crocheted Capricornus dangling from the mount. Instead, your thumb finds fossilized pigeon droppings. Astronomy's glamour never fades. A lens cap rolls under the star chart table, tomorrow's problem. Tycho Brahe's brass nose gleams in Copenhagen's museum. Now, his apprentice once etched Ursa Majoris, my ass here in wine dregs. Clouds devour Orion, leaving his belt to gossip with deeper dark. Your watch ticks 3:15, The universe ignores deadlines. Sirius swims into view, a trembling sapphire through grime. Medieval scholars swore stars sang plainsong. Tonight's flicker could be off-key. You hum a tavern tune, they'd have burned you for less. The western horizon swallows Leo whole, a starry snack for celestial whales. One stubborn light persists, 90 beats before winking. You christen it Cook's lost paring knife. Future astronomers will curse your whimsy. Frost etches the telescope tube, your exhale adds temporary fog. 18th century assistants warmed this perch with hot bricks, their shivers linger in the still air. Gears moan as the dome rotates, vibrations travel jawbone to skull. A meteor scribbles its suicide note across the sky, briefly outshining the tower's rusty weather vane. You wonder if it sizzled like bacon fat on descent. 5 stars linger, dice tossed by a gambler with nothing left. Shutting the dome feels like closing a loved one's eyelids. Your lantern resurrects the stairs, each step returning you from cosmic to custodian. The telescope shrinks in shadow, a forgotten god nursing its cataracts. 4 floors down, a bell jingles in the scullery. You count the echoes, ghostly harmonics of extinguished stars. The north wind files its nails against the glass, your cue that winter's petty grievances have arrived. Your thumb finds the rattling pane, its putty crumbling like stale shortbread. 14th century glaziers mixed cow hair into window leads for texture. Tony architects called it poor man's stained glass. You press your ear to the wood frame. The draft's whistle mimics a tea kettle left too long on the hob. Ancient insulation tactics dance in your head, wool batting, goose grease, the lost art of packing snow between shutters. A shiver chases your spine, reminding you why royal heirs moved south every December. Historians still debate whether the Grand Fenwick Treaty of 1762 collapsed due to a drafty embassy window. You unravel linen strips salvaged from last century's undergarments, thread-worn drawers of kings, past cushioning tonight's repair. 3 thrusts of the pocket knife wedge the fabric deep. The pain quiets, temporarily muzzled. Your breath fogs the glass, frost blooming where your nose almost touches. 18th century footmen bet vodka, shots on ice patterns, drunkenly arguing whether fern shapes hinted at next summer's crop yields. You trace a skeletal leaf design. It vanishes under fresh rime. Another gust, 2 windows down, reminds you this battle spans whole wings. The sconce flickers, casting your shadow as a hunted giant on flocked wallpaper. Napoleon's quartermasters used similar cloth to line campaign tents. Snobbish colonels complained the pattern clashed with cannon smoke. You pause at a warped casement, its latch worn smooth by centuries of desperate adjustments. Rain stings your neck, the storm's second wave breaching from the channel. A drip lands on your collar, its path tracing Cleopatra's Needle's voyage from Egypt to London. You plug the leak with candle wax morsels, each golden globule hardening into resignation. Someone hung mistletoe askew above the archway, its berries shriveled into peppercorn-sized regrets. Lightning blanches the corridor, freezing rococo cherubs mid-flutter. Thunder shakes a portrait of George III, his gilt frame rattling like a dented tea tray. You count 6 Mississippis between flash and boom. Queen Victoria's governess taught her that trick during childhood storms. Hail pellets ricochet off lead gutters. The sound suggests celestial billiards overhead. The linen holds for now. Your fingers ache from prying stubborn putty, each splinter a reminder of carpentry's democracy. Even emperors bow to bad joinery. The longest draft snakes under a baseboard, whispering of mice conducting pagan rituals in the walls. You stuff the gap with a desiccated orange slice from your pocket, sachets of cloves long since shaken loose. One last check palm gliding across shuddering glass. Fog retreats beyond the moat, revealing a sky rinsed clean of stars. Dawn's vanguard brews behind the elms, muted grays swallowing the cricket's final chorus. Your shadow detaches from the wall, joining the procession of phantoms, fading with the watchman's final round. The repaired window hums, a lullaby for drafts, yet unborn. 3 floors below, a scullery maid drops a spoon. Its clatter ricochets up servant stairs, sounding oddly like hail trapped in a copper pot. Candle wax still clings under your nails as you approach the kennel gate, its iron bars frosted like sugar glass. 3 mastiffs rise in unison, jowls quivering with contained yawns. Their names escape you. Royal Kennel Masters burned the records during the 1794 revolution. But their eyes hold centuries of guarded trust. You dangle your fingers through the grate, palm upturned like a treaty negotiator. Cold noses bump your knuckles, wet snuffles mapping your scent against memory. The brindle one paws the air, a gentleman's handshake from a creature who once dined on venison in Henry VIII's private chambers. Historians still argue whether Tudor hunting dogs attended banquets or merely loitered under tables. Leather collars creak as they jostle for scratches. Your thumbs find the spot behind each ear, that secret button that melts hounds into puddles of devotion. The smallest one exhales hot breath through your sleeve, its warmth defying the winter air. 19th century stable boys swore the kennels stayed 5 degrees warmer due to dog loyalty combustion. A low whine threads through the dark, part plea, part wolf song. You unloop the gate chain slowly, metal links chiming like distant church bells. The pack parts to let you enter, their wagging tails clearing a path through fresh straw. Someone left a child's mitten in the bedding, its red wool fraying at the thumb. You kneel despite your protesting knees, 3 tons of canine muscle pressing against your ribs. Tongues stripe your sleeves with abstract art. The brindle one drops a slobber-slick stick at your feet, a piece offering from its reign over the firewood pile. During the War of Spanish Succession, French spies hid messages in hollowed-out dog chews, a male system that apparently smelled of elk marrow. Your palm skims ripple-coat backs, each stride of vertebrae, a calendar of forgotten hunts. The black mastiff rolls belly up, paws bent in surrender to your scratch campaign. Its heartbeat thumps against your wrist, a metronome syncing with the courtyard, sundial's hidden gears. Palace ledgers from 1683 list hound oil as a monthly expense. Historians still can't agree if this referred to lamp fuel or a medicinal salve. Ice crackles underfoot as you rise. The pack whimpers, a three-part harmony of reproach. You pocket the child's mitten, its owner likely snug in the nursery 3 staircases above. The gate latch resists your chilled fingers, iron teeth clinging to canine heat. Their noses press against the bars as you retreat, velvet snouts flattening into grotesque masks. 6 eyes reflect your lantern light, golden coins payment for services rendered. You blow them a kiss. It hangs visible in the air before turning toward the scullery's dying embers. Behind you, paws circle straw into nests, preparing to dream of rabbit chase symphonies and stolen sausage trumpets. The scullery's last coal winks farewell as you pivot toward the antechamber, its oak door groaning like a bored sentry. Velvet drapes swallow sound here. Even your breath seems muted against wine-colored walls. A half-finished cushion mocks from the settee, its embroidery hoop listing starboard like a sinking ship. You lift the fabric, a jungle of golden thread vines strangling phoenixes. Something pricks your thumb, a needle snapped mid-stitch, and hidden beneath hibiscus petals. Versailles, seamstresses once sewed fleas into Louis XIV's cushions as petty revenge, though your culprit here favors carelessness over cruelty. The broken steel glints, a tiny Excalibur abandoned in silk. Rainbow pincushions bulge like overfed rats on the side table. You prod one thimbles, and rusted scissors shift inside. Historians still argue whether Tudor-era love cushions actually contained coded messages in their stitches. This one's drooping roses suggest the embroiderer either lacked skill or plotted bad romance. Dust outlines where maids should polish the inlaid tea table. Your sleeve erases a crescent of neglect, mahogany gleaming like dark honey. 18th century lords bet on spider fights in rooms like this, their wagers scrawled on parchment, now lining estate attics. The cushion's owner likely never considered future scholars dissecting their uneven French knots. You fold the fabric over the needle's jagged edge, a band-aid of decorum. Dawn's first shift will arrive, soon aprons starched and ready to cluck over the mishap. Tucking the evidence into your inner pocket, you note the crest stitched upside down on the back. Catherine de Medici's ladies-in-waiting popularized upside-down embroidery, a silent protest against courtly boredom. Mice skitter behind the wainscoting, their nails scratching a counterpoint to the mantel clock. 3:15, the hour when night's resolve softens into morning's compromises. A draft snakes through hidden passages. It flutters the cushion's loose threads into a ghostly beckoning finger. Your shadow stretches across the carpet, a funhouse mirror version of your duties. The ancient Regim's butlers hid love letters in secret compartments beneath such rugs. You kneel not for intrigue, but to smooth the fringe twisted by hurried feet. Laughter echoes through stone halls, scullery maids exchanging gossip with the stable boy. You straighten, joints popping like corked wine, and retreat toward the service stairwell. The cushion's lump presses against your ribs, a 9-stitch problem for tomorrow's ledger. Lantern light catches the repaired curtain tassel, your knotwork holding firm since Tuesday. Somewhere, a cat yowls, perhaps spotting the same spectral intruders, Tudor guards blamed for knocked-over goblets. You pause, listening to the palace inhale before the chaos of dawn. Fingers brush the pocket watch chain, its weight a silent chide. The cushion's secret stays buried until laundry day, or until some future historian pries it free with latex gloves and theories. For now, the antechamber guards its clumsy ghost, threads dangling like unanswered questions in the ticking dark. Frost crackles beneath your boots as you step into the courtyard, each crunch echoing off colonnades built to swallow sound. Moonlight sharpens the sundial's shadow into a blade across iced-over numerals. 17th century astronomers insisted these garden timekeepers worked under full moons, a fact gardeners mocked as they adjusted for seasonal drift. Your breath billows, a miniature replica of the wool banners rolled tight in the storage vault below. 3 mice freeze, mid-scamper near the dried fountain, their paws dusted with snow like powdered wigs. You spot the sundial's motto etched beneath the gnomon: Horas non numo nisi serenas. I count only the happy hours sounds nice, until you remember this was commissioned during the plague of Milan. Frost feathers across the Latin letters, transforming serenas into a lace of ice. You crouch, gloved fingers skimming the sundial's base. A chip mars the November quadrant, courtesy of last winter's hailstorm. Historians still argue whether medieval timekeepers were ever calibrated using prisoner-stoked midnight bonfires. The moon's angle says 2:47, though your pocket watch insists it's 3:02. Palace records claim this dial's maker vanished after engraving the final numeral his tools left arranged in a perfect celestial diagram. Wind hisses through the pillared arcade, a sound Florentine architects called stone breaths. Your shadow stretches toward the dormant rose bushes, their thorns clutching lumps of snow like stolen diamonds. 18th century stable hands once bet on which direction icicles would fall, recording outcomes in ledgers later used to predict crop yields. A twig snaps, your shoulders tense, before recognizing the feral cat from the east gatehouse. The sundial's brass edge reflects a distorted version of your face eyes, narrowed against the cold. You trace the frost-mangled hour lines. Frostbite threatens fingertips, even through lambskin. 16th century herbalists prescribed sundial snowmelt for melancholia, a remedy as effective as whispering troubles to drunkards. Ice glazes a spiderweb between two balustrades, the architect's geometry, colonized by eight-legged tenants. 3 footprints mar the otherwise pristine walkway, 2 human, 1 canine. You follow their path toward the well house, boots squeaking like unoiled hinges. Moonlight etches your shadow's outline into the frost, a temporary tombstone for tonight's shift. Georgian footmen used such frozen courtyards to chill wine, though your cellar stock remains safely corked and horizontal. The north wind redraws the courtyard's ice patterns, erasing your tracks as you retreat toward the service door. Frost clings to your livery buttons, each one a minuscule snow globe trembling with each step. Scholars recently carbon dated rat skeletons found beneath this flagstone, their bones arranged in shapes mimicking Orion's belt. A distant church bell confirms the hour, 3 chimes swallowed by the palace's snow-muffled hush. Your last exhale unfurls toward the stars, a vapor banner dissolving against constellations named by dead kings. The sundial's shadow creeps onward, untroubled by debates over its accuracy, or the mice rebuilding empires in the topiary. Tomorrow's sun will melt these frozen minutes into memory, leaving the stones damp and forgetful. You turn the hem of your coat, brushing a rose stem, and carry the cold back inside like borrowed time. The service door clicks shut behind you, its iron handle colder than the courtyard's frozen sundial. Yeast and wood smoke cling to the scullery air, a conspiracy of tomorrow's bread and yesterday's fire. Your lantern light skitters over stacked copper pots, their dented bellies reflecting warped flames. That lone coal in the hearth pulses like a drowsy heartbeat, its glow painting soot-streaked bricks the color of overripe peaches. You kneel, ash granules crunching beneath your knees like tiny bones. 16th century kitchen apprentices slept curled by hearths, their toes blistered by embers, noses full of cinders. The last coal sighs, a pop of sparks spiraling upward to die in the chimney's throat. Your breath stirs the ash, revealing half-charred rosemary stems from tonight's roast. A blackened spoon lies abandoned, its handle thrust upright like a surrender flag. Warmth lingers in the brickwork, enough to unthaw your stiffened joints. Tudor cooks believed hearths held memories of every meal ever burned, ghostly stews haunting the flues. You prod the ember with an iron poker. It fractures into glowing archipelagos. 3 blackened bread crusts stud the ash bed tributes to the fire spirits, or a scullery made sloppy cleanup. Wind whistles through a chink in the chimney breast, playing the flue like a rusty flute. Your shadow looms across the kneading trough, fingers stretching into monstrous claws on the flour-dusted wall. Historians still argue whether castle fires were banked with manure during sieges, the stench outweighing the warmth. The coals dying light gilds a mouse skull nestled in the kindling pile, its teeth flecked oat husks. You brush ash from your cuffs, gray flakes sprinkling the flagstones like morbid confetti. 18th century kitchen boys bet their wages on how long embers would last a game that sent 3 to debtor's prison. The hearth's heat retreats, leaving your cheeks numb. That final coal dims, its glow shrunk to a pinprick, rivaled by your lantern. Dawn's first bakers will curse this neglect, no ready flames to heat their ovens. Yet protocol forbids replenishing the fire. Night staff can't meddle with day shift domains. Your thumb grazes the hearth's edge. A splinter snags your glove. Gothic recipes claimed bread baked over midnight embers warded off witches, though it mostly produced lumpen doorstops. The coal winks once more, a final rally before crumbling into gray. You imagine it dreaming of birch logs, yet to fall, their sap crackling like distant applause. A draft lifts ash motes into a twirling dance, their ballet illuminated for no audience, but the soot-stained saints carved into the mantle. 3 cracks spiderweb across the hearthstone relics of the great kitchen fire of 1762. Records claim the head chef extinguished flames with 40 gallons of stored ale, dousing the blaze and his career simultaneously. Your boot nudges a cooling soup pot, its contents congealed into a lunar landscape of grease and time. Silence thickens, the absence of popping embers making the room feel deaf. You rise, knees protesting like unoiled hinges. Lantern light catches on a rat's nest wedged behind the spice cabinet, woven from cinnamon sticks and diplomats' torn love letters. The coal exhales its last visible breath, shadow rushing in like a black tide. 1 copper ladle sways on its hook, set in motion by your passing. It ticks like a metronome, counting the minutes until the head baker's arrival. You tuck the iron poker into its stand, metal kissing metal, with a monastic's whisper. Some argue Roman hypocaust systems inspired later hearth designs, though no self-respecting villa had to deal with Tudor-era soot demons. At the threshold, you glance back. The hearth crouches empty, a gaping maw dribbling cold ash. Morning will force life back into its belly, fresh logs, rasping flint, the scuttle of obsessed cooks. For now, dark dominates, a kingdom of crumbs and cooling iron. Your lantern retreats down the corridor, leaving the scullery to its charred dreams and the patient hunger of rising dough. Lantern light glides across the east wings, mothball-scented gloom, your shadow stretching gaunt across tapestries, older than the current crown. The Isfahan rug beneath your boots wears a charcoal blemish, a thumbprint-sized rebellion against perfection. 16th century diplomats carried clay pipes stuffed with Turkish tobacco, their embers dripping more often than their honeyed words. You crouch, fingers brushing carpet threads, singed brown in 1783. Courtiers swore pipe smoke repelled moths, a theory disproven by this tapestry's nibbled hem. The covering weave depicts phoenixes rising, conveniently masking the floor's shame since George III's reign. Your glove finds a warped floorboard beneath the rug ancestor. To every palace creak that startles night guards, linen fold panels drink the lantern's glow, their carved grapes and vines casting claw-like shadows. Half the council thought Ambassador Alfarati dropped his pipe deliberately, a protest against being seated below the Dutch envoy. You adjust the tapestry's corner, its gold threads catching light like trapped fireflies. 8 pounds of Moroccan saffron once dyed this rug's border the stench, allegedly made visiting bishops sneeze during audiences. A residual tang of oud clings to the fabric ghost of a diplomat's 10-minute tantrum. Historians still argue whether Alfarati's accident masked a coded message to allied courts. Your thumb smudges a wax seal on the windowsill, left by yesterday's courier, ignored by day staff. Silver moonlight reveals the scorch mark's true reach, charcoal tendrils creeping beyond the tapestry's edge. 3 mouse droppings stud the scene, tiny punctuation marks to the century-old drama. Restoration attempts left the rug's center threadbare. Too much scrubbing, not enough storytelling. You weigh a jade paperweight against the tapestry's rebellious curl, knowing Dawn's maids will undo this fix. Someone's lost hairpin winks in the wainscoting, its garnet dulled by dust or disgrace. The north window leaks a bassoon-like moan, wind threading through a cracked pane. Tudor chimney sweeps believed soot from diplomatic fires, carried bits of state secrets. Your lantern's reflection warps in a gilt frame, king someone's cousin, frozen mid-sneer above the damage. That scorch mark birthed a dozen treaties, all banning open flames during ambassadorial sulks. Floorboards voice their complaints as you retreat each creak, mapping the butler's nightly pilgrimage. The hairpin stays wedged. The paperweight holds. Beyond the casement, an owl laughs at human vanities, or perhaps just hunts field mice. You exhale a vapor cloud, mimicking pipe smoke's arabesques. Morning will bleach these dramas to footnotes, sunlight smoothing singed threads back into the rug's sea of blue. Your gloved hand drifts to the inner pocket, its leather flap worn smooth as a child's blanket. The atlas exhales spice and mildew when unfolded. 93 paper countries pressed between onion skin pages. Cairo's inked minarets blur into Kyoto's cherry blossom margin, a journey compressed to 11 creases and 1 coffee ring. 17th century merchant caravans timed desert crossings by camel size, 3,000 breaths per oasis. If the maps weren't lying, moonlight betrays the Nile's blue line, retraced, so often it's worn to threadbare cream. Your thumbnail digs into the Danube's curve, remembering the envoy who gifted this book mid-blizzard. His frost-bitten fingers left rust stains near Belgrade, claimed it was a prince's blood from some revolution. Cartographers once flavored ink with gunpowder, their borders crackling faintly when noble houses argued. The Aegean Sea's edges crumble like shortbread, years of obsessive refolding after bad news. A smudge near Alexandria resembles Her Majesty's profile. Or maybe that's the sleep deprivation talking. Silk Road traders used maps as currency. A crisp chart could buy 2 camels and a bribed guard. You rub Damascus's dot, still bitter about that fake shortcut costing 3 days and a boot heel. Someone sewed corrective longitude lines with scarlet thread stabbed through paper like sutures. The cartographer hid Atlantis in the Mediterranean's corner, a tea stain masquerading as landmass. Historians still argue whether Zhang He's treasure fleets reached Madagascar, or if monsoon winds just scattered drunk scribes' notes. Kyoto's corner holds the press of a lipstick kiss, faded to brick dust. Silk traders whispered that mermaids, scales guided night voyages. Turns out it was bioluminescent squid. Your little finger traces the Pamir Mountains nail catching, where a tear warped the peaks. That Austrian countess swore saltwater preserved maps better than wine. You tested it once during a particularly maudlin birthday. The Adriatic's coast has gone Barnaby blank, rubbed raw during a week of bad tides. Napoleon's mapmakers allegedly salted charts with trap streets, phantom alleys to catch spies. You've added 7 yourself over the decades, tiny revenge for lesser betrayals. A pressed jasmine petal marks the Indus Valley, crumbling to greenish dust at the edges. Moths ate Hamburg in 09, left a continent-spanning hole patched with stationery from the palace. Mongol messengers tattooed roots on their calves. You tried it once with henna. The Yarkand pass itched for weeks. That crease between Aleppo and Mosul, entirely your fault, folded too fast after reading casualty reports. Dawn's first blade slices through the cloister archway. You refold empires along their weary seams, Moscow to Marrakesh collapsing into an accordion sigh. The Atlas regains its sandwich-flat slenderness, a lifetime's wanderings crammed behind your 4th rib. Somewhere in the kitchens, a maid drops a copper pot, its clang scattering imaginary camels, squid, and lipstick ghosts. You adjust your cuffs. The night's ink-stained fingerprints dissolve with each step toward the foyer's false cheer. Your shadow stretches across the divan's claw-footed legs, catching on gilt edges worn dull by decades of board heels. The paper crown's foil peaks glint beneath the furniture, a sad little kingdom surrendered to dust rabbits. 18th century aristocrats hid silver coins in birthday cakes. One unlucky glutton allegedly choked on a 6pence meant for prosperity. You crouch, the pop of your knee joint echoing a harpsichord's dead note. Fingertips graze crumpled cardstock. The crown resists rescue, its Scotch tape hinges petrified into amber brittleness. Princess Charlotte's 9th birthday featured a live swan ice sculpture. It melted into the punch bowl by dessert. This forgotten relic lacks such grandeur. Its gemstones are reconstituted gum wrapper foil. A beetle scuttles across the crown's declaration. Happy birthday, Prince, before the last syllable got crushed. Historians still argue whether Georgian-era party crackers contained arsenic-laced glitter. Or if that's just Regency propaganda, the answer's moot. This was 1930s, the era of edible balloon wax and lead-based face paint. You debate protocol. Retrieving it invites inquiries. Leaving it risks Dawn's scullery maid thinking you negligent again. Royal nannies, once believed abandoned toys, attracted spectral whist players, their ghostly games blamed for drafty nurseries. A breeze stirs the draperies, God, not this again. You stand, brushing lint from your knees, the crown's lone, surviving jewel winks as you step back. Tudor children wore rabbit skulls as party favors, considered lucky, until the Black Death made bones gauche. Your cufflink snags on a divan thread, emerging with a fiber souvenir. The clock tower chimes a half-hour warning. 3 hallways away, a scullery boy drops a spoon. Its clatter morphs into phantom applause from long-dead party guests. You adjust your waistcoat, the silk, whispering a counter-argument to the crown's mute plea. Let Dawn's shift handle it. You've enough spectral revelries haunting your roster tonight. Moonlight shifts, exposing the word prince again. For half a heartbeat, the letters glow like Frogmore House's infamous radium party invitations. You shake your head. Sleep deprivation's worse than port aftertaste. The crown fades back into shadow, a problem for tomorrow's sunlight and someone else's conscience. Your shoes pivot toward the linen closet, its scent of lavender and repressed hysteria, a known sedative. Somewhere in the West Wing, a draft mimics children's laughter. You hum a music hall tune to drown it out, 3 notes sharp. As always, the night stretches on a guest that overstays every welcome. The linen closet's latch clicks, shut behind you, its cedar-scented sigh clinging to your cuffs. 3 doors down, the minister's study exhales twin plumes, burnt wick and existential dread. You pause. Protocol demands checking for abandoned correspondence. Etiquette manuals ignore how often that correspondence includes passive-aggressive memos about your polishing techniques. Moonlight slants across the desk, illuminating a sentence frozen mid-word. The nibs split tip hovers over expedition, its final N dissolved into an inkblot Rorschach. 18th century diplomats used saliva-proof paper after Cardinal Dubois died, licking poisoned treaty seals. This sheet's watermark shows a phoenix, faint irony given the minister's stance on budget allocations. You lift the quill, it crackles like a dried wishbone. A paperweight's needed. The jade frog winks up from a drawer, its belly polished smooth by 3 generations of bureaucratic frustration. 17th century clerks believed frogs warded off verbosity. This one failed spectacularly. The abandoned draft details trade tariffs, or possibly a Melanesian butterfly migration. Ministerial penmanship rivals Crimean battlefield maps. You smooth the page, its fibers rasping like a bureaucrat's cough. Legend claims Napoleon's scribes wrote with owl quills dipped in mercury. This tragedy requires no such theatrics. A breeze ripples the curtains, threatening to scatter 9 pages of unsent grievances. You pin them with the frog, its emerald hue clashing with the mahogany. Regency-era ink recipes included crushed beetle shells, their iridescence meant to flatter vain ambassadors. This ink just clots, the unfinished word gapes, a lexical open grave. Historians still argue whether Lord Castlereagh's suicide note was a grocery list, or if the parsley notation was metaphoric. You'll never know. This draft's fated to become drawer lining for someone's secret whiskey flask. Your cuff grazes a coffee ring, the stains edges crisp as treaty boundaries. Midnight licks the window panes. Somewhere, a maid's dropped tray rings through servant stairwells. The frog glows under moonlight, an amphibious sentinel guarding half-baked policies. You adjust its angle, ensuring dawn's first rays hit the minister's doodled margin phallus. Victorian undersecretaries perfected the art of subliminal rebellion. A gilded clock wheezes 3 halls over, the 3rd footman's snores sync with the pendulum's sway. The draft's concluding flourish yours in reluctant cooperation trembles in a sudden draft. You exit backward, avoiding floorboard creaks imprinted with decades of hasty retreats. The frog watches, unblinking. Polished jade never betrays how often it's been thrown against walls. Your shadow merges with a suit of armor's hollow grin. The study door whispers shut. 2 floors below, the baker's kneading dough to the rhythm of your footsteps. Night's final hour yawns, its breath smelling of burnt sugar and unresolved clauses. You slip through the chapel's oak door, wax drips fossilize on pew edges like amber tears. Votive flames twist saints' features into grimaces, their stone brows furrowing at your squeaking soles. 2 wicks drown in molten wax pools. You fish them out with silver tweezers kept for this precise heresy. Medieval altars burned beeswax candles as status symbols. Parishioners got cheaper tallow that reeked of rendering pits. These crimson tapers contain crushed rose petals, an extravagance ordered by the Duke's 3rd wife during her botanical piety phase. A 14th century Pope band, floral-infused candles, arguing pollen distracted angels mid-prayer. The ban lasted 17 days. New wicks hiss awake, their light stretching the Virgin's shadow up the apse wall. Your reflection glimmers in her tarnished halo, a smudged moon orbiting tarnished silver. Reformation-era churches sometimes melted down saints' statues to cast musket balls. Tonight, she'd make poor artillery, her nose already chipped by a WWI draft. The confessional's curtain twitches, though no one's there. Mice, probably. Or Cardinal Richelieu's ghost sharpening quips about your dusting habits. 17th century nuns posted candle guards against nocturnal drippings. Fancy talk for wax starch battles with linens. You adjust the snuffer's chain, its links imprinted with a pardoner's fingerprints from 1583. True, unlikely. The tour guide's favorite tale. Smoke Ribbons spiral toward, sealing murals of damned souls, their open mouths catching the incense you replenished at Vespers. Historians still argue whether medieval hellscapes improved behavior or just gave architects creative excuses for bad fresco proportions. You rescue a drowning moth from the holy water font, its wings translucent as communion wafers. 3 candles cluster near St. Anthony's feet, patron of lost causes. Their wax puddles resemble Italy's boot if Italy had stepped in chewing gum. A 1920s psychic claimed this chapel's shadows predicted stock crashes. Her unnamed source was later arrested for smuggling absinthe in candle shipments. You file that under unverified but entertaining. Moonlight bleeds through a boarded-up rose window, its diamond panes shattered during the salt tax riots. The replacements, painted burlap from a failed theatrical production about irony alert, a martyred tax collector. Your grandmother insisted chapels stay cold to preserve humility. Her ghost would approve of the draft, gnawing your collar. The sacristy door creaks. Its lock nibbles your key like an old man gumming toast. Inside, spare wicks coil in lead-lined drawers. Tudor monks stored gunpowder here during the Corn Uprising. Proof faith and flammables shouldn't bunk together. You count 84 candles. The abbot's ledger claims 85. Either arithmetic's changed or someone's lighting unapproved vigils. A draft extinguishes 2 flames. Relit, they flare like divas interrupted mid-monologue. Baroque composers wrote entire masses based on candle flicker patterns. You hum a Kyrie that syncs with the sputters 2 centuries out of tune. Last task, check the poor box. Empty, as always, though a child's marble winks in the coin slot. 30 years back, a thief stole the collection to fund his duck breeding scheme. The ducks escaped. He opened a poultry restaurant. Divine justice smells like rosemary rotisserie. You retreat backward, palms brushing each pew to relearn their scars. The Lady Chapel's gate protests your exit with a metallic yawn. 12 candles now burn steady, 12 until dawn. Their glow licks the keystone, where a stonemason carved his lover's initials inside a fleur-de-lis. You wonder if she preferred saints or candlelight. 3 stairwells away, the head gardener coughs. Your shadow hesitates on the chapel threshold, its outline merging with a martyred deacon's graffitied frown. The door clicks. Night swallows the sound, a saint-sized yawn. Rain needles the corridor's west-facing windows, each drop cracking against leaded glass like a desperate telegraph. You pause, count 33 ticks, before remembering Morse code decoders, retired decades back. These panes survived the Great London Frost of 1684. Workers melted down church bells for their lead when supply ships froze. Tonight's storm repurposes them as percussion instruments. A draft slithers under the door. Its cold kiss unspools your cravat's starch. Wool drapes hang heavy as royal tapestries. You tug them shut with the grim determination of a sailor reefing sails. 18th century footmen soaked these fabrics in sour milk, kept moths away better than lavender. The smell lingers 6 generations of bovine protest. Wind rewrites the rain's rhythm, now staccato bursts against diamond-shaped panes. Jane Shaw's 1796 weather journal claimed storms spelled out dead sailors' last words in code. She also believed geese could predict grain prices. The 3rd Earl hosted her once, drank 3 brandies, and banned mention of poultry. Your lantern gutters, its flame shrinking from the damp. Leaded glass, distorted more than sound. Tudor cooks used warped windows to disguise overripe meat's green tinge. Historians still argue whether Morse code rain inspired signal lamps or just gave insomniac lords something to decode between brandies. You trace a droplet's path. It carves a question mark through centuries of grime. 3 windows rattle in unison, their iron stays groaning like overtaxed credit. A 1922 repair invoice lists spirit gum and wishful thinking as sealing agents. The storm's breath finds every cut-rate shortcut, whistling through gaps wide enough to slip a love note or a divorce decree. You press an ear to the coldest pane. Glass hums with the timbre of a brooding cello. Victorian servants whispered about rain voices, messages from drowned ancestors bubbling up through puddles. Mrs. Pettigrew from the scullery swore her aunt's ghost complained about damp stockings every monsoon. The rightmost drape rebels, its rod tilts like the Tower of Pisa on a bender. You prop it up with a volume of Voltaire, the Frenchman's smirk intact beneath dust jackets. Enlightenment philosophy makes adequate shoring material a fact that would delighted the 4th Duchess. She secretly installed a lightning rod during the 1783 Thunder Riots. They still call that wing Franklin's Folly. Lightning forks. The sky, its reflection, etches the corridor's armor into momentary tombstones. A droplet slips through the sash, splatting on your collar like an ice-gold epiphany. Weather vanes spin wild on the North Tower. They'll need lubricant come dawn. Your grandfather swore storms like this loosened Lady Aliner's portrait from its nails in 09. It now hangs slightly crooked, a permanent smirk. Thunder shakes a suits of armor's gauntlet. It drops its halberd with a clang. You jump back, heel skidding on an infamous squeaky floorboard. The estate carpenter left it unrepaired as an alarm. His 1614 journal called it the royal sneeze. 3 queens, 2 mistresses, and a treasonous poet got caught by its shrill protest. Rainwater pools beneath the middle window. Its reflection warps your shadow into a funhouse gargoyle. Tudor architects sloped these sills inward, a drainage system outperformed by a child's cupped hands. You mop the spill with your sleeve, the linen drinking moisture like a desert saint. 6 drafts converge where the corridor bends. They whip your coattails into a poor man's cape. The 5th Duke recorded hailstones large as finch eggs during a 1707 tempest. His butler charged extra for weather-related injuries. Your predecessor lost an eyebrow to wayward sleet, hence the policy against winter window checks. A downspout chokes. Its gurgle mirrors the third floor plumbing after Sunday's mutton stew. You make a mental note to bribe the groundsman with extra firewood again. Georgian-era drain pipes bore the embossing weather's whimsy, a contractor's inside joke that outlived his bankruptcy. The storm peaks, rain drilling the glass like a clerk's impatient finger. Leaded panes bow slightly times pressure, turning straight lines into sagging smiles. Restoration consultants warned about permanent undulations last autumn. The board vetoed repairs, opting instead to blame perspective. 2 candles expire in wall sconces, their final smoke curlicues swallowed by the damp. You relight them, flames clinging to wicks like sailors to mastheads. Regency maids burned rosemary to sweeten storm-stale air. Tonight's scent is pure wet hound and resignation. The casement latch chatters, you silence it with a linen strip torn from your kerchief. 19th century footmen used cured eel skins for weatherproofing. They also believed eel slime cured gout, a theory tested once and never repeated. Quiet bleeds back as the storm staggers east, its finale, a half-hearted drum roll on the greenhouse roof. You press a palm to the coldest pane, glass throbs like the neck of a sermon-shouted bard. Dawn's first light will crystallize tonight's chaos into dew, the palace's nightly reset. Your shadow stretches toward the breakfast wing, already dreading the wet flagstones. Somewhere below, a gardener's shovel clangs against a rain-swollen gutter. The storm's last whisper slicks the stairs, a liquid sigh evaporating before it hits the tiles. The glove sits stiff as a starched cravat on the walnut bench. Rain's aftermath gleams in its creases, each fold holding trapped light like stolen moonlight. You crouch, inhale the scent of wet leather and indecision. 18th century envoys left gloves as informal peace tokens after botched negotiations. This one's missing twin likely molders in a Venetian canal, or lines a rookery crow's nest. Wind sneaks through a nearby keyhole, its breath ruffles the glove's curled fingers. Protocol demands you leave it. A diplomat's property stays untouched until retrieval. Empathy votes for moving it. The ambassador's arthritis flares in damp weather. His cane's rhythmic thump still ghosts the east stairwell, 2 beats too quick for decorum. You study the emptying corridor, check for witnesses. 16 candles gutter in wall sconces, their reflections pool in freshly waxed floorboards. A 1793 etching in the servants' hall shows King Louis's valet executed for rearranging misplaced gloves. The caption reads, "Order is all." Your fingernails dig crescent moons into your palms. The glove's stitching winks gold thread, spelling initials in Cyrillic. 19th century ambassadors signed glove linings with lemon juice ink revealed by candle heat. You resist the urge to test this. Arson charges tend to sour job references. 3 floorboards beyond the bench creak, the opening bars of Rule Britannia. The 4th Duke installed musical planks to amuse gout-bound guests. His composer went mad scoring parquet symphonies, spent his final years setting birdseed prices to waltz time. Rainwater drips from your cuff, pocks the bench's varnish. Conservationists would blanch at the moisture. Their 1920s guidebook specifies blot. Never wipe for antique wood. You blot with your sleeve. The linen sucks up liquid like a proper English stiff upper lip. Lightning flash memory. The glove's shadow becomes a crocken grasping for the wainscoting. Historians still argue whether diplomats abandoned items as coded messages or just had butterfingers after sherry. You note its precise placement, perched where the ambassador's gout-swollen hand might easily miss. A mouse skitters under the bench. Its tail flicks the glove's pinky. The motion mimics a new recruit's first bow all panic and misplaced joints. Your own training echoes. A butler's hands remedy chaos, never instigated. Dawn's first gray slips through far windows. It pales the glove from ebony to mole brown. The 3rd Footman's Manifest lists one left-hand doeskin under yesterday's arrivals. Ink smudges suggest multiple entries and multiple frustrations. Somewhere below, a clock chimes the half-hour, its bronze tongue sluggish from humidity. You count 6 strokes instead of 7. The tower mechanism's chronic butterfingers strike again. The glove's owner will demand punctuality with his morning kippers. Arthritis be damned. Wind quarrels with an open transom. Its whine layers over the glove's silent plea. Regency protocol handbooks devote 6 chapters to dignified retrieval of misplaced personal items. None mention pre-dawn moral crises involving rheumatism and rodent trespassers. You step back, heels clicking the anthem of retreat. The glove becomes a museum piece, a still life in abandonment. Dawn shifts shadows. Its angle reveals a thumbprint in the dust. Yours or the ambassador's. Either way, proof of human contact. Footsteps hum in the breakfast wing, a scullery maid's uneven gait. You smooth your lapels, rehearse the lie, discovered at 7:03, precisely as found. Let the day shift, untangle protocol's knot. The glove shrinks in the growing light, a leather comma mid-sentence. You leave it punctuating the bench, a dry wit's punchline, awaiting its setup. Somewhere, a diplomat frowns at his bare hand, and a palace mouse drags a gold thread toward its nest. You unlatch the first shutter, its groan echoes through mothball-scented stillness. Linens drape canopy beds like moth costumes after closing night, stiff with starch and abandonment. A stray feather escapes a pillow seam drifts toward the parquet, where a duchess once dropped her dentures mid-sneeze. Georgian households bundled beds in linen each September, winterized against drafts creeping through stone walls. Your candle licks at the memory of sweat-soaked nightmares trapped in mattress ticking. Cold air slithers through the cracked window, It stirs curtain tassels into sluggish semaphore. 3 seasons dust coats porcelain figurines on the mantel, their pastoral smiles gray as old teeth. A 1782 housekeeper's diary claims moths carry fragments of forgotten dreams in their wings. You doubt it. These specimens look more inclined to carry mildew. Each step across the rug triggers a pollen-like puff of lavender sachet particles. Your cuff snags on a bedpost carved with roses, their thorns serrating the linen. Since George III's reign, historians still argue whether closed summer rooms deterred mice or simply preserved the illusion of wealth. You side with the mice theory. Tiny claw marks constellation, the wainscoting. The second shutter fights its hinge, rusted from July thunderstorms. Your shoulder shove sends a hairline crack through the frosted glass pane. Regency glaziers mixed horsehair into putty for elasticity. This sealant's given up the ghost. Below, the courtyard sundial wears a frost toupee, its shadow fingerless in the gloom. Frigid air bullies its way inside. It riffles through loose ledger pages on the desk. Someone abandoned a game of solitaire mid-deal. The Queen of Hearts peers under the mattress skirt. Victorian maids believed finding playing cards in bed frames meant proposed marriage. This queen's ink bleeds where condemned lovers pressed handwritten vows. You adjust the shutter's angle balanced between airflow and structural dignity. 4-poster beds loom like ships in dry dock, their linen sails awaiting winds of aristocratic return. A 1920s housemaid swore these rooms echoed with phantom laughter. Every midsummer's eve, all you hear is mousetrap tension, springs coiled like guilty consciences. Dawn creeps through the broken pane. It stripes a Chinese letter S shroud with jail cell light. 18th century physicians warned against night air's morbid influence, advised sleeping in sealed chambers. You count 37 visible mold spores thriving in defiance of dead doctors. A draft teases loose threads from the canopy fringe. They shiver like cobweb lures. Your candle expires with a sulphurous sigh. Its final smoke curls into the shape of a corset silhouette. Housekeeping ledgers from 1803 list spirit vapors as standard linen stains. This phantom corset lacks the usual sweat rings progress. Perhaps your breath mists the nearest mirror, obscures the reflection of a wardrobe left ajar. Inside hangs a forgotten ball gown, its silk withering into ghost skin. Parisian modistes once stitched arsenic into green dyes to preserve vibrancy. This gown's hue outlived its wearer by 4 decades, a toxic heirloom. Floorboards pop like arthritic knuckles as you retreat. 3 intertwined initials hide under the windowsill, carved by a homesick lady's maid in 1762. Grand Tour souvenirs clutter the escritoire, a chipped Medusa cameo, a vial of Vesuvius ash, a lock of hair labeled Byron. The cold has done its work, stale air now fugitive. You close the door on the equinox between seasons, summer's heat embalmed, winter's chill courting the draperies. Somewhere in the walls, a mouse drags a shred of lace toward its nest, the palace's true archivist. You step back as flower dust motes pirouette through your lantern's reach. The kitchen's night breath smells of dormant ovens and last week's burnt almonds. Yeast exhales in its ceramic crock, a sourdough starter passed through 8 head chefs. Its bubbles pop like micro-gulps of Tudor-era air. You half expect Elizabeth I's coronation loaf to rise from the goo. Victorian bakers smuggled beer barm into dough for lift. Apprentice bread wore a tipsy tilt till noon. A splintered rolling pin lies abandoned, its handle whittled smooth by palms dead before Waterloo. Heat lingers in the brick hearth like a shy guest. You roll a discarded raisin between thumb and forefinger. Its wrinkles map a November drought from 1822. Bakers nicknamed these widows' tears when crops failed now. They're just plumped in brandy for scones. 18th century cookbooks swore cloves in the dough rack deterred flower beetles. 3 desiccated buds stud the windowsill, their defense line breached by enterprising ants. The proofing basket creaks as dough pillows swell beneath linen, a yeasted glacier conquering territory. Some need-mad apprentice left fingerprints in the surface, their whorls fossilizing into edible archaeology. Historians still argue whether Georgian bakers added chalk for whitening, or if those gritty bites were just bad milling. You suspect a lazy miller's son and a magistrate's bribed palate. Your elbow grazes a copper bowl. Its clang scatters a mouse feasting on spelt scraps. It eyes you with crumbs jeweled in whiskers, a rodent Henry VI minus the wives. Pre-dawn kitchens were once realms of footmen gambling with pilfered sugar cubes. Now, just shadows sharpening under your swinging light. A jam-smeared ledger lies open to an 1897 entry. Raspberry stores low, substituted beetroot puree. Clients complained of bleeding crumpets. You avoid the central table, its flour-dusted surface already humming with tomorrow's shape. Half-mixed batter crusts a porcelain bowl, abandoned mid-whisk when the head baker's knees gave out. Rumor claims he communicates with his starters, whispering Bavarian lullabies to the gluten strands. The proofing dough sighs louder, or maybe that's your stomach betraying decorum. Dawn stains the butler's pantry windowpane, rose gold bleeding through latticed glass. 36 eggshells nest in the compost bin, their yolks destined to gild brioche for officers' breakfast. A fading poster warns never salt after sundown. Dough remembers grudges. You pocket a cinnamon curl meant for the incinerator. Its caramelized edges shimmer with guilty promise. The yeast crock burps, its culture more alive than 3/4 of the current staff. You retreat as the first baker's clogs scuff the courtyard stones their keys, jingling like spurs. 19th century apprentices baked coins into loaves to test oven temps, metal trinkets outlasting empires. The door creaks open, you melt into the servants' stare as flower blooms into the corridor. Somewhere below, a fist punches dough, the hollow thump of gluten surrendering. Steam will soon jewel the air, but that symphony belongs to ghosts in aprons. Your stolen cinnamon stick burns sweet on the tongue, a conspirator's breakfast as the palace yawns awake. Your breath hangs visible as you climb the bell tower's spiral, each step steeped in centuries of pigeon dust. Hempen ropes dangle like frozen serpents, their fibers grooved by generations of dead ringers' grips. You press a palm to the largest bell's bronze flank, still warm from yesterday's noon chimes. Medieval founders alloyed church bells with silver for a purer tone. This one reeks of looter's greed and melted down doubloons. A spider flees your lantern light, scuttling into the crack where a 1603 mason misspelled sanctus as sancuts. Historians still argue whether Elizabethan bell towers leaned intentionally, or if drunk architects just eyeballed the plumb lines. You lean out the narrow window, your cheek kissed by air that last touched Dover's cliffs. 3 cobwebs drape the safety rail, woven tight as Muscovite embroidery. The ropes stain your palms with tar and hope. Sailors once swore bell towers guided them better than lighthouses, until that foggy night in 1712, when Portsmouth's clangor lured 3 ships onto rocks. Dawn's first blush pinks the eastern cloudbank, 60 seconds till the junior bellman arrives. Your thumb finds a splice in the main rope, repaired with violin strings during Napoleon's invasion scare. A faint hum lingers in the metal, last week's requiem for a duchess vibrating at 512 HC. You count 34 knots in the pull cord, one for each monarch who heard this bell's voice. That chipped spot near the clapper. Blame King George, IV's coronation, when overeager ringers cracked the edge off. Restorationists found chewing tobacco plugging the fissure, Victorian maintenance at its finest. Wind sneaks through arrow slits, a dissonant chord in F-sharp minor. Your pinky brushes a carved initials, WT 1588. Conspiracy theorists claim Armada-era watchmen napped here, while Spanish sails dotted the horizon. The truth's duller, a love-struck bell ringer, engraving his sweetheart's initials between shifts. Dawn leaks across lead tiles, the exact gray of a wars of the Roses-era squire's dentures. 2 floorboards creak their nightly protest, same as when Cromwell's troops billeted here. You pocket a fallen oakum strand, emergency wick for your dying lantern. Morning's first sparrow lands on the bell cage, its chirp crushed under the junior bellman's yawn from below. 3 heartbeats pass before his boots hit the spiral stairs, time enough to memorize the rope's stillness. The tower smells of wet stone and adrenaline, centuries of rookies vomiting before their first royal peal. You exit stage left as the new shift arrives, their laughter bouncing off bronze that outlived plague, war, and 3 terrible lute recitals. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, a milkmaid pauses mid-pail count the chimes, unaware her grandfather's teeth fund that fourth clapper. Your shadow retreats down the slujebne scodi, the servant's shame staircase, hidden behind a tapestry of St. George stabbing a quince pie. The ropes tremble overhead, awakening with jerks that travel through floorboards into your spine. Each toll hammers the morning into shape, forging hours as reliably as a Saxon blacksmith's apprentice. 9 strokes quiver in your sternum, half the palace's bedsheets stripped by now. You pause beneath a dripping eave, water etching a path down your collar like iced regret. The junior bellman's off-key whistling chases you into the herb garden, an aria for the ages. Parsley shrugs off night's chill as you disappear into the maze, leaving the tower to conduct daylight's orchestra. Your fingers dance through the cord's frayed ends, silk threads whispering secrets of 1,000 summoned servants. 17th century manners used bell codes, 3 tugs for wine, 7 for a surgeon's midnight visit. You loop the final bow, knotting it tighter than Queen Anne's corset strings. Lantern light paints the servants' hall wall with shadow puppet reenactments of the Bastille storming. The cords tassel faded burgundy from decades of sweat, and polish brushes your wrist like a moth's goodbye. Rumor claims Lady Winthorpe's ghost haunts this hallway, her deathbed anger over cold soup forever echoing in the bell's chime. You inhale beeswax and yesterday's mutton stew, a scent as timeless as the dumbwaiter's grease-stained pulley ropes. Historians still argue whether these bell systems streamlined service or let masters monitor staff movements between courses. Cold seeps through your left shoe where the soul parted company last Tuesday. The lantern's wick sputters its final defiance before darkness claims the ironwork scrolls above. Palace records mention footmen betting wages on bell-ringing speed. 1,773 gambling ledges still carved behind the china cabinet. Your thumbnail picks at candle wax, embedded in the knot. Victorian-era drips, fossilized alongside Edwardian breadcrumbs. A draft lifts the cord, swaying it like hypnotist's pocket watch. You count 11 threadbare patches, each worn smooth by butlers who mastered the dignified sprint. Some claim certain knots ward off evil spirits, crossed loops mimicking ancient Saxon boundary signs. The last flame dies, plunging the bell panel into blackness brighter than the Duke of Marlborough's bald spot. Silence rushes in, a physical presence crowding your ears. Your keyring jingles despite the felt strips sewn into your apron, failures muffled as a diplomat's cough. Moonlight through the scullery window reveals your reflection in a soup tureen, a ghost wearing your face. 3 floors up, a governess's sneeze triggers the hunting dog portraits to bark, their oil paint throats practiced in passive aggression. The knot holds, tug test approved by generations before you. Your pulse slows to match the long case clock's wheeze, both mechanisms oiled beyond their warranty. They'll find your replacement tomorrow, some starry-eyed lad from the village, still believing in silver polish miracles. Let him learn about wine stains and spiteful parrots the hard way. Dawn's first finger pokes the coal chute, its light too anemic to cast real shadows. You exit through the butler's pantry, sidestepping the loose tile that once hid a duke's love letters. The cord remains, perfection coiled in shadows, as you dissolve into the ticking heart of the sleeping house. Your fingers brush the cord's frayed edges, silk threads murmuring tales of countless hands before yours. Olden estates spoke through bell ropes, 3 pulls for wine, 7 for midnight emergencies. You tie the last bow, knotting it firm as a queen's fastened stays. Flickering light paints walls with shadow plays of revolutions past. The tassel grazes your wrist, faded velvet worn smooth by generations of palms. Whispers linger here, stories of cold soup grievances echoing in iron bells. Beeswax and aged stew cling to the air, a scent older than the pulley's creak. Experts still debate if these ropes summoned help or traced servants' paths like chess pieces. Chilled stone seeps through thinning shoe leather. The lantern gasps, one last spark illuminating scrollwork above. Gamblers' initials hide in cabinet grooves, 1,773 wagers etched by hands long dust. Your nail chips at wax globes, Victorian tears, frozen mid-drop, beside crumbs from forgotten feasts. Breezes sway the rope, a pendulum lulling the corridor to rest. 11 smooth patches mark where masters of haste gripped tight. Some knots twist in olden patterns, warding symbols from elder times. Darkness blooms sudden and complete, shining even the duke's bare crown. Quiet floods the hall, pressing against your eardrums like ocean depths. Felt-lined keys chime softly, a muffled confession. Moonbeams bend your face in soup silver, a stranger wearing your years. Paint canine snarls answer a distant sneeze, their fury muted by varnish and time. The knot endures, tested by every steward since mortar dried. Your breath sinks with the clock's labored tick, 2 worn gears winding down. Tomorrow's novice will arrive bright-eyed, still trusting in elbow grease and fairy tales. Let him discover ink stains and cockatoo grudges for himself. First light bleeds through ash shoots, pale and hesitant as a new footman. You glide past hidden compartments cradling aristocrats' secrets. The cord lies dormant, a sleeping serpent in gloom, while you slip deeper into the house's whispered breath. Hairline cracks in teacups hum lullabies. Floorboards exhale centuries of polished stress. Somewhere beyond moth-eaten curtains, dawn stitches gold thread through night's hem. But here in the timeless between hours, the world holds its breath and rests.